Greetings, Briot.
Hey Brian, Arival.
So day, I don't know what of quarantine. I'm having some interesting experiences myself. I seem to be kind of leveling out in a lot of ways, and but you know, we'll see. But I feel better. I'm actually feeling better about who I am and where I am and what's going on. So I'm assimilating. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Got a little bit of a headache. Child's been screaming all day. But otherwise, good.
Well, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
It's very quiet now, so calm before the storm.
yeah, let's see.
Okay, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about um, the meditative state, the connection. When I meditate, I have a connection to my inner world. I'm having an experience of me. I'm not having thoughts about me. I'm having experiences of me.
Hmm.
And that when I got good at meditation, I started having experiences of my connection was so delicious with me, and I reached out beyond that and felt that I was connected to all that is.
Hmm.
And that's really quite rejuvenating to me. So people are a little bit stressed, and I just wanted to ask you a few questions about your experience, because you're quite dedicated to your communion with creation, doing probably several hours a day, I believe, and just to be able to give people an experience of the health of that,
Hmm.
the experience, the rejuvenation of that.
Hmm.
So where would you like to start with that?
Where would you like to start? Hmm. I think a good place to start is just to humble oneself first, and just recognizing, one's position in creation, and that is very small. I think many people have seen those videos, where they start on a little 1 square meter video footage of some person lying on a lawn, and then it zooms out and out and out, and then your planet, and then out and out and out, your galaxy, and it says you are here. And it just kind of gives you a bit of an idea of how small you are. And then they zoom in onto you. And at the same time, even though we're so small, what we do can have such a big impact on things around us. So it's a little bit of like a, how do you say,
Paradox.
a paradox, yes. That we're so small and vulnerable, but at the same time also powerful and big. So I think the humble position is that what am I as part of everything else? And the meditation that I've liked most, and it's brought me the most peace and actually given me the most guidance in my decisions, is that I'm a servant. That I'm a servant, and my position is just to act for the benefit of all, and ultimately also to act for the pleasure of the Creator, which is enjoying unlimitedly, and that through the service a relationship is established, and then one can also participate in that unlimited enjoyment that the Creator is relishing.
I'm going to have to ask you to speak a little bit louder.
All right.
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. Hopefully it's recording well, but keep going.
Okay.
So that we are, so I'm going to recap. So that, being humble to that we are, really quite small in the great concept of infinity and universe and galaxy. We are really quite tiny. And then paradoxically, that we are also huge, in a sense that I like how Bashar says it, is that that all that is not all that is without you.
Yes.
So even though we are small and that we're a servant, that we're also grand. We're also part of, nothing is greater than nothing's greater than a tree or a star or a planet, is that there are no half miracles.
Yes.
Everything is a miracle. But also is realizing that, in the greater scope of everything, that it's paradoxical that I also being humble in the face of all that is. So it's a beautiful paradox. So thank you. So, so then you talked about that there was a meditation that you do that has brought you, you know, the most peace. So I'm intrigued.
Yeah, that meditation of being a humble servant as opposed to being the Lord and Master of all I survey. Everything that I see belongs to me and is meant for me to enjoy. And anybody who stands in my way, he's my enemy. And then this concept of I and mine, as we were talking about the other day, arises due to this false ego identification. But actually, one can see just by looking at anybody really that being a servant is something that we cannot escape. Because you look at the animal kingdom, then they're always conducting some kind of service, like there's service to the offspring, or if you're a lion, there's service to the pride, or even amongst human beings, maybe some money is involved, but you're always serving somebody. And if there's nobody to serve, then you get a dog and you serve the dog. You get some pet like that. So you can't escape that nature. And ultimately, also everybody is serving their senses. Like the tongue.
Everybody's serving their what?
The senses.
Serving
your senses. Your eyes, your nose, your tongue, your ears, your genitals.
Senses.
Yeah, they demanding certain things, and we're running around trying to satisfy them like servants. So this nature we can't escape, and we have this nature because the soul is by nature a servant. But in the modern context, a servant has a little bit of a negative stigma to it, which generally when people think about I'm a servant, they don't really jive so much with that idea because it seems to be a very low position to put yourself into. But in a transcendental perspective, we see that this material world, everything is actually upside down. The most glorious thing spiritually is actually perceived as the most lowly thing in the material world. Like a tree that's been reflected into a pond of water, the top of the tree seems to be at the bottom. So in a spiritual sense, and we see this with all great masters and ascendants, that they had this extremely humble mood of servitude to others. They were simply there to give what they can to other people and not wanting to take anything for themselves. And this is actually the most elevated position to be in. Whereas in the material world, to be the guy at the top, the big CEO or the prime minister or whatever, that seemed to be the most prestigious. So it's like that's the fallacy of our existence, that we think up is down and down is up.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I just want to reiterate a little bit about that. So when you spoke about the ego, I am the master of all I survey, and really the survival ego, the survival basis, what are the guiding principles for that? Like the simple ones are, the ones I like to use is the seeds of doubt is comparison, and the seeds of comparison is competition, and the seeds of competition is war.
Yeah.
And that being the top guy in that competition, because all corporations are competitions, everything is a competition of being. It's really alpha behaviors. It's really about that one. Every alpha thinks of themselves first, and that it's a survival mechanism structure, and being able to transcend survival. And we start asking different questions. Like if it isn't about how much I can acquire. And truthfully, it's about that human beings feel like there's a hole in the middle of them, all of us, and that we don't think that we're good enough. And then we never address that question directly. We actually have been taught to put it under the bed. Yeah. And then we try and acquire things outside of ourselves to be able to prove to ourselves and others that we're worthy.
Yeah.
So that sets up this entire survival mechanism structure. And then when we start being conscious to that and start asking the question, the transcendental, the transformational, spiritual journey is actually asking the question, well, am I not good enough? Is that actually, and when we realize that that is an illusion, that it's actually a lie that we've been socialized to believe and carry around but hide, as soon as we answer that, then and start looking to answer that, because it's not something you answer immediately. It's something that you actually have to chip away at. And then we start looking at, instead of that, it's I'm greater than everybody else and I need to prove it. We start edging towards the question of service. So then I'll hand that back to you.
Yeah, a service-based mentality changes everything, because when you're going to make a decision, then and you ask yourself, what choice, if I make that, would enable me to be able to be of most service? Immediately things become a lot more clear. Whereas if you're thinking the only alternative is to think, what choice can I make would benefit me the most? And benefit meaning according to my concept of what is actually beneficial, which might not actually be beneficial, but I believe it to be beneficial. So,
well, my survival mechanism has a need.
Right. And now if you're going down that line, then immediately you have competitors and you have to compete with those guys, because not everybody's going to be like that. But if you're thinking about being a servant, then in a community of transcendentalists, there'll also be competition, because they're also thinking about serving, and there's certain service opportunities. Let's say it's time for us to eat, and then there might be a bit of competition who's going to get to serve the food. But this is a transcendental competition. Right, you see, this kind of competition is very nice. It's relishable. I've seen this where two guys have their hand on the ladle and they're like, I'm going to serve, because they're really so enthusiastic about it. So
it's funny.
So they're attached to doing that.
I'm going to serve the servers. I'm serving the servers.
Right. So when I was still a monk in the temple, there was this one person, he would wash the pots, and he was attached to the service of washing the pots. And I came there and I said, hey, can I do it? Can I wash the pots? He says, no, it's my service. He didn't want to do it because he was relishing something from that service he did not want to give up. So I really appreciate this mentality. Yeah. You don't see that often.
We are so funny. We are so funny as human beings. That I haven't laughed like that in my entire quarantine. You made me laugh from my belly. So thank you very much. That was awesome.
Yeah. So this whole service attitude, it doesn't change your nature. Like things like competition, it's part of our nature, but it just imparts a completely transcendental quality, which is relishable by everybody. Whereas with the material I, me kind of centered thinking, it causes pain to everybody and even yourself, because you're going to have to struggle to pursue it, and that's not so nice. And then even when you get it, it doesn't really satisfy you as much as you anticipated. And then there's just more desires coming up.
The word that I would use there would be attachment.
Attachment.
There's an attachment to the story. There's an attachment to what happened, as opposed to the guiding principle, I serve. I'll serve here, I'll serve there. And not really taking, the human being wants to take accounts. I want to account for my service. I want to account for how good I am or what I've actually created. Is that there's something inside of me that needs to know how well I'm doing, as opposed to, and compared to what, which is the other thing. So yes, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, that's very good.
So where do we go from here?
Well, then now in order to serve properly, one should actually know what is beneficial for others. Because if one is serving from the platform of body consciousness, meaning I am this body, I'm a white male, I'm South African, 32 years old, or I'm a black female, I'm 21 years old and I speak this language. Like these are all false designations. They're only related to the body. They're not part of the identity of the soul. So if you're acting from that platform, your service is going to be philanthropic at best, because you're going to be serving other people's bodies. And a nice example is given of saving the coat of a drowning man. That somebody's in the ocean and he's screaming, I'm drowning, save me, please, somebody save me. And you're like, I will save him. And you're swimming out and you're wrestling with them and you grab it and you come out to the shore and you lift up and you've just got his coat. And you said, I saved him. And you just got his coat, but the person's still drowning. So similarly, the body is just like a garment of the soul. And if one is just directing service to the body or even the mind, when you kind of get a little bit more subtle with like psychology or something like that, you're not actually serving the soul. Although these types of services can be important avenues to serving the soul, but in and of themselves, they're actually still material and they won't really solve any problems. So one therefore needs to have knowledge of the soul and the difference between the body and the soul so that you can connect all these different activities, like philanthropic activities are very nice, but they need to be connected with the transcendental perspective that we're not these bodies, we're eternal souls. And then these other types of endeavors will actually be very fruitful.
One second. So being able to put it into my words is that when you were talking about being able to tell the difference between the soul and the code, I would call the code is identity. Is a series of labels that I've decided that I am. I'm this, I'm from here, these are my abilities, this is the person that I've created an identity. And that you're pointing to, and it's a bunch of labels, and it's about how I understand myself, or it's the best way that I've been able to figure out what I am, so that and a big part of it is to figure out how I'm doing and whether I'm good, what is my nature, and that I want to feel good about myself. So there's a whole bunch about that. So then you're talking about being able to make the difference between the identity and the soul. Okay, and then?
Yeah, that's really good. So once one actually knows how to serve the soul, then you are able to serve. Otherwise, that service will not actually be spiritual, and it will be material, and it won't actually be beneficial to the person you're trying to serve because it's only directed to the body. It will have some kind of temporary benefit, but ultimately it will actually make no difference at all. And that the biggest deficiency in this world is actually transcendental knowledge. It's not food, it's not water, it's not medicine. It's transcendental knowledge, or one could say the biggest lack in this world are saintly people. One can say like that. And saintly
Did you say
people,
sensing?
Saintly people. Saintly.
Did you say that again? I'm not good.
Saintly people.
Saintly.
Yes.
Saintly.
Saintly people. And the saint, and any one of us can become a saint by our behavior, because that's how you recognize a saint, is by their activities. And the saint is basically just trying to connect to people wherever they're at, and they're trying to direct their consciousness towards that you're not this body, you're eternal spiritual soul. And somehow or other trying to help that person make just one step closer at least towards that. So that's what saintly people do. That's their only business. And they have, and also one amazing thing is about these people is that there is absolutely nothing that you have that they want, because they already have everything. So they already have everything. So when they come, they're not there to take. They're only 100% they're there to give, because there's nothing you have they want to take, because they already have everything, because they're satisfied.
They have everything they need, yes.
Because they're acting on this platform of the soul, and they're trying to render some service out of love. So this is the quality of the saint. Yeah.
Okay. So what I got out of that is just really realizing, like, what is our true nature? Is being aligned with what you truly are. And when in meditation, when I start becoming a human being or experiencing what I am, and it's a discovery. I don't create myself, I discover myself.
Yes.
In every moment, there's an unfolding of what I am experientially. And it's incredibly, and it's beyond intellect. I'm not having a little conversation with myself. I'm having an experience.
Yes.
And it's at its deepest level, it's rejuvenating at any level. And at the deepest level, it has an experience of sacred. There's a sacred experience of the depths that I can go to with that. So when you're talking about, when I start understanding my nature of what is my soul, what am I truly, and that when you realize that, and then you realize that what there is for you to serve, is that when I understand my soul self, and then I know what a soul service looks like, and being able to serve those around me as it unfolds. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds a very nice way of putting that.
Okay.
Nice
So
way.
then, what happened?
Well, when one does it, this is basically what Bhakti Yoga is. It means the yoga of devotional service, loving devotional service. Then it's something that's performed, and it's something that never stops. It's something that can never be checked by any kind of circumstance whatsoever. And then even when you die, you just continue in this because it's also a state of consciousness where you're in. Is wherever you find yourself, your only meditation is, how can I serve? And that meditation
Yeah,
is applicable anywhere, even after death.
yeah, when you're in setting an intention, when you realize who you are at whatever level, you have an intention of what you're here to do in this life and in any given moment. And when you have at a transformational spiritual level, when you've come to the idea of all there is service, it never there's no other situation that trumps that.
Yeah.
You might have, even in personal survival, that where you maybe you act from your own survival, but you're still thinking of the whole at the same time, regardless.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
intention never changes. Okay.
So this object of to where the service should be directed, or this love, that question might also come up, because one might think, okay, I'll serve whoever is like in my vicinity. But then there's also so many living entities that we can't perceive, so then that's kind of a whole other thing. But then also in the sense of one will have to derive a certain sense of satisfaction from that service for it to be sustainable. Otherwise,
Yes.
what impetus is going to make you continue into that? If it's just dry, if it's very austere and painful, then it's not something you can do for very long. Let's be honest.
Okay.
You know?
So
yeah.
then, the word that I would use for that is meaning. Is that in part of my intention is service, and the meaning that I give my service is. So what is the meaning you give your service?
Yeah,
so that it is
that's
sustainable.
A good question. Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think one thing is one can assess like how whoever you render service to, how they reciprocate with your service. Because that's also important, because we are people with personalities. Actually, even on the spiritual level, we're also personalities. Otherwise, there's no meaning of being a servant. And so that means when we are exchanging with other personalities, there has to be a reciprocation. And what we find in this world, which is that all of our exchanges really, they're not satisfying whatsoever. And that's also the reason why generally people, when they get to embark on a spiritual level, they're very attracted to the idea that spirituality possesses no personality at all. That in the spiritual ascension, then all individuality and personality, they're all completely nullified, and you all merge in just this one mass of spiritual consciousness. And
Yes.
that's very attracted to them.
Pure consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're very attracted to that, because their experiences of personality and relationships have all let them down.
Yes.
So they're naturally
there's definitely
the reaction to that. But on a spiritual level, there can be service. And if that service is rendered to the right personality who can reciprocate properly and completely satisfy you, then naturally that's where you will stay. It's just a matter of finding that personality that can reciprocate with your love that you want to give, because everybody has an incredible amount of love to give, but who can reciprocate with that love properly? And that's also what everybody's looking for in the different relationships. And that personality is known by a lot of different names in very different cultures, but commonly is known as the creator or as God, or I like the name Krishna, it's a very sweet name. And in this sense, yeah, so there's also some kind of personality there, because an interaction can have with it. I've had conversations with people who hold that that source is impersonal, but in the talkings about their spiritual ideas, a lot of times they're talking about exchanges with source. But you can't have an exchange with something that lacks personality. It doesn't make sense. You can't have an exchange with it, actually. For there to be exchange or relationship, there has to be personality, right?
I have a few of you. So to reiterate and get to a couple questions is, so there's an attraction to pure consciousness where people can actually feel some freedom away from their own personality.
Yes.
And that also some freedom away from their relationships with other people where it was non-reciprocal, where they weren't getting much satisfaction in the exchange with one another, because we are missing each other. You know, people aren't interacting. There's 8.5 billion, 7.5 billion perceptions of reality, and we're missing each other in those perceptions. And then, so then having it be reciprocal and having like you are some kind of personality. I am something.
Yes.
Even, and I don't create myself, and I'm not all these labels. I'm not my body. I'm not my mind. If you know, my soul has a personality. It isn't just neutral.
Yeah.
I can act neutral and I can feel neutral, but there's a part of me that isn't neutral.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued with when you talk about this satisfaction that you're getting a reciprocate connection for your, you know, your love and your service and your personality, and then you brought in creation. So is that the primary relationship?
Yes.
Creation.
Exactly. I think this is it's a very fundamental and important principle to understand, because when we direct our devotion and our service towards the Creator, then automatically it will include all living entities, because all living entities are part of that supreme whole, that Creator. So, and it's not possible to worship or to serve a Creator and neglect its parts and parcels. In fact, that kind of devotion is said to be in a very immature stage. So it still counts as devotion, but it's neophyte level stuff. So we want to move.
What is neophyte? Just clarification. What's neophyte? I missed the action.
Neophyte means just beginner.
No, not that part.
Oh.
What's the action that was neophyte? I missed the example.
Yeah, to be serving God or Creator, but to not acknowledge His parts and parcels and all the other living entities which make up on Him.
Okay.
Like, for example, you're in your temple or place of worship and you're praying very devotionally to God, and you turn around and you deal ill with somebody. That means your devotion is actually very shallow. There's some devotion, but it's very shallow. Because actually this very same God you're talking to now is also present within that body. But now you just turned around and so that doesn't show a lot of realization in your devotion.
Yeah.
But
so you just yelled at a part of yourself. When we every master and every discipline worth its salt, all of them speak about oneness.
Yes.
All of them speak about the connection to all that is. And like I said with Bashar, all that is not all that is without you. There are no half miracles. Everything is a miracle. Everything's on the miracle level. So being able to speak about oneness, and I deal with that myself. I know that I am connected to all that is. I know that I'm the same energy of creation. And then I turn away from my meditative places, and I have a business, and that I start dealing with people like they're not God. That they're not creation. That they're not. Yes, I'm guilty of that myself. That's and chipping away at that. I'm way better than I was before, but I still notice all the places that I'm reactive and not seeing the best in people. My identity and senses are evaluating their identity and senses and reactions, and evaluating it and seeing myself as being superior as opposed to them. Okay, so I get that.
Yeah. And
so not to change the conversation. So now back to your connection to creation and how that lives for you.
So directing one's meditation towards creation with the understanding that that it's a tiny part of the creator, then it changes that whole paradigm, because now your energies aren't just being directed to the separated parts, but they're actually being directed to the source of these parts that these parts are part of. So then the difference is like trying to water individually the leaves of a tree, or watering the roots of the tree. Right.
Yeah.
Watering the roots of
Nice
the
example.
tree, everything gets watered automatically. No need to make an individual attempt. So that means now I can render service to the creator through my wife, because I'm living with her and my 2 kids. So if my consciousness is that this is just a living being who's right now playing the role of my wife and gives me the opportunity to serve the creator through this relationship, it gives a whole other like approach to the relationship itself. Now it's not about me wanting to get from my wife, which between a man and woman relationship is usually sex, and because they're based on that. And then, but there's something completely different there. And through my exchanges with my wife, if my consciousness is tuned properly, I can commune with God directly.
Yes. Well, and that's really quite. We're going to have to pick up this conversation later.
Yes.
Nice topic. My work about this one of being able, like I was talking about people missing each other, and that because we are actually having our own perceptions, we're adding our own meanings into the moment of how we're understanding what people are doing, and misunderstanding. I mean, we're constantly misunderstanding where people are and what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah.
That's a really big piece of the work, so that you can reciprocate with one another. That you can. We need to put so much more work into understanding each other and understanding each other's views. If we want unity as a couple, or as a nation, or as a society, is really going to take us to be able to put all of our effort into understanding.
Yes.
So that we can figure out how to make it work for 2 people, a community, a nation, or a society. That is the work that needs to be done. I want to revisit that, because that was a perfect lead into it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now back to creation and your meditation.
Right.
Go ahead. So what is the actual practice? Because I'm curious to what your emotional experience is, like your intention in coming to creation, and that you've already set it up that creation is, how the Course in Miracles says it is, the only difference between you and God is God created you, but you didn't create God.
Yeah.
And so, and being able to, so you come to God from being you're going to water the entire tree instead of every root, and that you're going to serve creation because that you see that as your role. So what does that feel like? How do you set it up in your mind? And then what is your experience like, if you can go step by step about what you do and what you feel?
What I do. So you want me to mention my actual practice also?
Yeah, but specifically in the practice of what the intention is.
Okay.
And then what the experience is. Not all the details.
Okay. So I think that there's a general loop that happens of me, due to my forgetfulness, disconnecting from that reality, and then somehow or other remembering that actually this is the reality, not the one I'm currently accepting, and reconnecting into that, and then forgetting again, and then reconnecting. So I'll just start by, let's say I've forgotten, I'm somehow or other, I'm identified with my body, I'm in my head space again, and I'm going on.
Yeah.
Generally what will happen is that it starts very small, and gradually, life becomes a little bit more challenging. It becomes more intolerable. I start to suffer more inconveniences. And it's not necessarily that externally anything is changing, but I think it's more like how my consciousness is responding to it. But even external changes may be there as well. That might also be there. But and then at some point, that suffering or that pain brings me to the point to think a little bit more thoughtfully about myself and my situation and how I'm responding. And then it will bring me to my senses where I realize, man, I'm like in my completely out of my heart space now. I'm not thinking at all about service. I'm just thinking about myself now. Somewhere there under the line, I've got disconnected, time to reconnect. And then I just start with
Okay.
my affirmations. I start remembering my intentions. Yeah.
So to put my words to that is I start not feeling good and I start not really feeling good.
Yeah.
And then I realize I need to connect back in because I've forgotten what my true connection is, as
Yeah.
opposed to me being cut off and separate and in societal issues and personality issues and identity and, all the things that aren't working. And
Yes.
then I actually go connect back in. And when I connect to all that is and see my place in it, all of that stuff disappears as a mirage, an
Right.
illusion.
Right.
The game, the game we all play.
Yes.
Okay.
But I would also say that in my experience, that this not feeling goodness is also can act as a great impetus for that. But that's not necessarily an indication that you're not in alignment, which I've seen in a lot of New Age circles and hippie circles, where they have this idea, but actually it's false, because even somebody who's situated properly on a spiritual level, the mind and the body is still the mind and the body. So your body's still going to react to heat and cold all the same. Your mind is going to react to that of the body all the same. So it might not make you feel good, but how you deal with that and how that actually makes you feel even deeper than how you feel is is there you see a big difference. So I think maybe that's what you were saying, but there's like an emotional level which is kind of mental, and then there's a deeper emotional level which is more on a spiritual level. But oftentimes people don't know the difference between the two.
Yeah, I still need to be connected with who I truly am and my connection to all that is to go, oh, this is my body, this is stuff, I'm feeling it, and that, but it's the meaning I put to it is very much less important.
Yes.
Because I do have my connection to what is.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when the words that you used is when I forget myself, and then I'm being selfish and only thinking of myself, and I'm and I forget what my connection to all that is when I'm not feeling good. Like the not feeling good is when I go, oh my God, I'm living completely separate again.
Yes.
And then I connect back in.
Okay. Yeah. It's also like the difference between pain and suffering. That suffering is a matter of choice because it's your consciousness, but pain is going to happen. Like if you break your leg or you step in a thorn, it's going to hurt. There's no amount of mental swinging or choices is going to stop that because it's a function of your body. But whether you suffer from that pain or not, that's up to you. And the same applies for emotions. The same applies for emotions.
Yeah.
Because like
the Buddhist saying is pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Exactly, and that's really nice. I like that.
And the key to that is the meaning you add to what's happening.
Yes.
And if you have a higher perspective, and if you have a higher frequency of yourself connected to all that is, the meaning you give these lower frequencies and feelings is very significantly different.
Yeah. And if one is dealing with something like depression or anxiety or other mental illnesses, oftentimes people mistake a spiritual path as being something that is like an instant solution to those problems. But then what people actually do is they just stick it under the rug, but this problem is still there. Whereas an authentic spiritual approach will actually equip them to take it head on and to be able to tolerate that unpleasant feeling so that they can actually go through it and move through it, because it's something you actually it's a space you have to move through. Yeah,
absolutely. Is the part that I would add to that is
they call it spiritual bypassing.
Yes, you deal with it directly. Is that it's not that you have a lack of problems.
Yeah,
is that you're not taking them quite so seriously, and that you turn and face these things. And that it's also about turning and facing everything. You do have a dedication to the truth, but you're armed with a way to be able to not get run over by it.
Yes.
You're actually able to interpret it in a way where you can actually see it for what it truly is and make some separation of what kind of impact it has on your life. And some of it dissolves entirely
Yeah.
because it's illusionary. It's some beliefs that you had, some things that you've decided are true, that once you've got enough transformational spiritual knowledge, you can see the folly in it and drop it completely.
Yes.
So, and that's also about, this in this time of that there's a lot of misinformation out there and people are afraid, is that the transformational spiritual way of looking at this is that you can turn and face all of it.
Yeah.
And if it's the truth, I can deal with the truth of what's going on. And if it's a lie, then I don't really need to be concerned about it. So
Yeah.
you enter into the field from a place of I can handle anything that happens here. I can deal with any amount of information, and that I would rather know what the truth is, and that I can separate. If it's a lie,
Yeah.
then why am I worried about it?
And it doesn't matter
if
how
it's
it
the
makes me
truth-
feel either.
Say that again?
It doesn't matter how it makes me feel either. I want the truth. And
Yes.
sometimes to realize something about yourself can be pretty shocking. Like
Oh yeah.
like years ago when I realized, like, oh my God, I'm actually an asshole. I was like, it was like a knock on the chest, It's like, oh, I'm actually, but it's a good
Yeah.
realization. It's very painful.
Like being able, yeah, really just the things that come with the human condition, about that all of us have pettiness. All of us have had to deal with jealousy at one point or another.
Mhm.
All of us had to have, comparison and shame. And there's all kinds of things that have come up for us that we've had to deal with. And the ways that people choose to deal with these things, and their interpretation of reality, that is, usually about what's wrong with me,
Yeah.
or how do I need to prove that there's something right with me. There's lots of opportunity in there to be an asshole. So yeah, I definitely understand. And it's all of us have to go through that, and just being able to see it for as best we possibly can, and then being able to minimize, from our higher frequency of what my true nature is, connected to all that is, be able to see that, the truth of these things, and really minimize as much as possible.
Yeah.
And just for the record, you're one of the nicest people I've ever met. You're consistently really kind. I mean, I really have a nice feeling around you. So you really are that person for me. So
Thank you.
just so you know how you're doing out there, you don't really show up as an asshole for me. So thank you.
I appreciate that. That's kind of you. There's this nice thing that I've heard the saying. It says something like, we're all playing the same game, just different levels, fighting the same battles, just different devils.
Yes. And we all live in our own reality. I mean, people hand you your script. They start into. I've been so many things for so many people that, because I don't really follow how you're supposed to look in life. I just really do me. And therefore, the number of scripts, how people interpret me in their world of what I'm doing and what my intentions are and what kind of person I am, is really kind of amazing to really see all the different things that you are for other people. So, and that missing each other part that we've been talking about, so more of our relationships can be reciprocal, so that we can, I don't mind if people judge me. I don't really mind if you're upset at me or you judge me, but judge me for what I mean by my words, not what my words mean to you, or what my actions mean to you. Ask me, judge me all you want, but actually check to see if this is what I'm doing. And if you're going, yeah, I'm judging you because you're doing these things, then I'm good with that. When you start deciding that I'm doing things that I'm not doing, that's we're just so missing each other. It's so unfortunate that we spend so much time interacting with ourselves.
So then on the next stage, then, like, back to the original thing, where now I've realized this, and I like go back into alignment and reaffirm my intentions, then immediately situation becomes more clear to me, and I'm able to deal with the way I'm feeling and what I'm having to deal with more effectively. And then also, normally, because I was out of my alignment, then I made some bit of a mess. So then the realization of that, which causes some inconvenience for me, and I'm like, all right, I made this now, and now I have to deal with this. I don't know, maybe I made my wife upset, just as an example. And now I have to deal with that. I did it. so now, but now I'm not in that space anymore, but still I did it. Now I have to deal with it. But now I'm equipped to deal with it. And now I can acknowledge and take what I need to take from it. And then generally I feel a lot of peace. I feel a lot of certainty. And I also feel empowered because I have a bit more of a realistic understanding of what the limits of my own power is. And I don't try to exert my power beyond that. And I try to exert the fullness of my power within that. But also realizing that beyond that, there's also a benevolent creator who has the power beyond that. And I trust him. And then, so therefore, I have certainty on both sides of it. I feel safe. I've got security. I've got certainty. I've got peace. And I've got purpose also. Because now I'm out of just this tiny little moment that's happened now. And I'm actually seeing more in a bit of a continuum that's going on.
So one last set of questions. Just to have from my own curiosity, is your communion, is that when you connect with creation, what is, how do you do that, and what is your experience? So I know it's meditation is one of them at least, and that, so what is your intent? Like, what are you holding in your mind? And then you go, okay, now I'm going to meditate. That's an intention.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to do that, and you open yourself up and you have an experience. What are those things, if you're able to answer that?
Well, it starts the first thing in the morning, which I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning for, and I spend about 2 hours in my meditation, and it's just meditating on the mantra. I'm vibrating a mantra. It's known as the Hare Krishna mantra or the Maha mantra. It goes Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And I just repeat this mantra to myself, silently. I've got beats that I count on, and for about an hour and 40 minutes or so. And the essence of this mantra is,
what is so that has significant meaning for you.
Yes.
So what is, I'm assuming, so the vibration, I get mantra, I understand vibration. I know what those two things do for one, and that the specific meaning of, what does that mean to you on an emotional level? Like, these words mean this, and this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm giving out, and this is what I'm giving in.
Yes. So what
are those?
It's a prayer to be able to be engaged in service, because service is also not a thing that you can run up and demand. Service is a thing that one is also awarded, like that opportunity to serve. Because in humility, you can't go and with humility demand service, right? It's like,
so it's an emotional
yes.
opening
to
be humbly knowing your place and knowing that you're a servant to creation. And so I'm giving you examples of what's the emotional experience.
Well,
and,
my emotional experience in that ranges between feeling very in place, like I am in the right place right now, and also between struggling with conflicting desires, because I'm still full of material desires, and there are a lot of desires that do not want to be the servant, they want to be the master. So then they also then come on the arena, and then they try to take the stage. And then it's basically a matter of my focus on staying on the mantra and not being stripped away by the desires. Yeah.
Okay, you just harmonicized again, so if you could just say that one more time, is that these desires come up and they are distracting, and that, so what do you do to separate yourself from those experiences?
All I do is I just listen to the mantra. That's it. Just I say the mantra, I listen to the mantra, and sometimes my attention goes to the mind, and as soon as I realize that it's not on the mantra again, I just bring it back to the mantra. So I don't actually have to deal with the mind. All I do is I have to just focus on the sound.
And the emotional meaning, so is it just frequency and sound, or what's the emotional meaning of the mantra? What is the feeling that you have when you're doing it?
The feeling that I have is that that I am loved, and that I have love to give. And that there is in fact somebody that is loving me, and that there's somebody who appreciates my love more than anybody else.
Yes. So there's the exchange. That's what I was looking for right there. So
Yeah.
all those questions were that's it. You know, I was dogged. I stayed with it, and that's exactly what I was looking for. Okay.
Bingo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And bingo, yes. So that to reiterate is that I am love and I have love to give. And there's the reciprocated emotion is appreciation for the service that I give and the love that I am. And that, and I hold it as the love of a father and a mother has for a child is
Yeah.
everybody knows how incredibly immense that is. And then I just multiply that by creator. How
Yeah.
does creation love me?
Yeah. There's
Is the
somebody
question
there.
that I ask.
There's somebody there who never forgets about you. They're thinking about you all the time, and they're always thinking, I hope he's doing well. I hope he'll do better. And they're cheering you on and always supporting and never judging, always embracing you even with your faults. Yeah. So it's like the perfect.
The depth of that love. When I think about the nature of our world is when I take a look at the nature of mothers, for example, and all mothers with babies, and that people say that it's chemical and that it's instinct, and I'm saying I think there's a little bit more going on there than chemical and instinct.
It's a fact.
And that all of them, and just the deep love a mother has for a child, and then I multiply that by creation created everything, and creation created me, and so I multiply the love that creation. I just asked, if creation loved me, what would that feel like? And I haven't found the bottom of that yet. I haven't found, it's infinite,
Yeah.
and it just keeps getting bigger. And it's an incredible experience to be able to open yourself up to, not running around. I didn't come there like creation loves me. I went there, what if creation loved me, what would it feel like? Is how I started. And that it was so overwhelming in enjoyment. It was impossible for me to refute the experience. That's how I got there.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in wrapping up, this was a lovely conversation. It opened up so many more things for me. And the conversation I thought we were going to have and the conversation we did have once again was completely different. And I have 3 more podcasts that we did the foundation for. I'm going to have to listen to this again to remember what they were, but it was really quite amazing. So any final words, Priyat?
Yeah, I think that every single moment is an opportunity to express love or to learn how to love. Every single opportunity or every single moment is an opportunity to express love and to learn how to love. And if you can approach every single moment like that, your whole life will be changed.
I would add one thing to it, is that every moment is an opportunity to express love, to learn to express love, to feel love, or to learn to feel love.
Yeah.
So
that's nice.
Actually there's little hairs jumping up. So thank you very much. I always love. I haven't talked to you, until recently, for a very long time, and so I'm really grateful for this quarantine because it's forced me to actually get in the same room with you. So in spite of the fact that you're in India, so thank you very much, Priyat.
Yeah.
And that let's post this as soon as possible because I'm loving it.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. Till tomorrow.
Thanks, my friend.
Haribol.
Talk tomorrow. Bye-bye.